Dear friends, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. May God add a blessing to the hearing and understanding of these words. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Bill. All right, let's start our time with a little bit of centering. It's just as much for you as it is for me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be ever pleasing to you, O God, our Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer. So over the last 4 weeks, we've been talking about radical hospitality that is rooted in the understanding and modeling that Christ gives for us. And today we're talking about, well, then what does radical hospitality look like when we work together? And I will say something that was very incredible with all of you last week is that we worked together to do an incredible fundraiser for our local nonprofits. The total officially that came after this week's counting was $920 that we raised to split between the Fish Food Bank of Orchards, our Friends of Carpenter, and the Winter Hospitality Overflow Network. And it turns out what we heard from our partners is that every little bit helps. And so I am so proud of you. So give yourselves a round of applause. But what made it possible wasn't Pastor Jessie reaching out to the local nonprofits. What made it possible was you. If there was any group who ever knows how to pitch in and help and do a little bit of everything, it's you guys, Orchards United Methodist Church. I ask for pop-up tents. We have pop-up tents galore. I ask for hot dogs and chips, food donations, pile in. Cleanup? Oh boy, you have no idea how much pastors are really nervous about cleanup and setup because we don't think anybody's going to show up because we've been burned one too many times. You all showed up. You did the setup, you did the cleanup, you brought your own chairs, you brought them back in, you took care of the tables, and by the time I was done eating my second hot dog, boom, it was taken care of. You understand what it means to work together. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. But what does it mean to work together for hospitality, the process of welcoming? I know that we're confident in our abilities. We have ushers, we have name tags, we have all sorts of incredible stuff that we have put to the test. But I often hear, and I'm sure many of you have probably said this yourselves, we just don't get many visitors. So how are we supposed to practice our radical hospitality if no one comes to say hi to us? And I'm going to tell you this, and it's not a secret. Every single church says this in this day and age, particularly as we're reopening from the pandemic. But I want to remind you that it's the practice of telling people where the restrooms are in the welcome statement. It's the practice of pointing out where the nursery is. It's the practice of putting on our name tags, even though we know that usher already knows our name. It's those practices that build and rebuild our strength as we come back from a really hard, it's been almost 2 years, hasn't it? And as we figure out what it means to be church, again, we've got good bones and we want to share them with everybody. So last week, we had a couple visitors. One of them I invited, Michael, who's been volunteering at the Fish Food Bank for 12 years, and someone by the name of Connor, who's a teenager that Wendy Lawson has connected with. But then there were some people that I didn't even know that showed up, because this is the magic of Facebook. Believe it or not. I spent $12 on an advertisement and we got back at least $40 in donations. Pretty good, huh? So someone drove by at about 2:00 and leaned out their car window and said, "Hey, were you guys doing the grill out today?" I was like, "Yeah." "Cool. Here's some money." And I was like, "Okay, don't hand it to me. I can't take it. I'm the pastor." But I handed her an envelope and then I sealed it and then I put it in Sherry's box. It's those sorts of practices of being open, receiving. And the one regret I have from that interaction, I didn't get her name and I didn't get her contact information. Shoot, a missed opportunity. We had someone show up and pile a bunch of, I think Mike sent him away with at least 4 hot dogs and a couple bags of chips. And they handed over a donation and they headed out. And Mike and I were sitting there and I was like, "Mike, who the heck was that?" Because I don't know people at orchards, right? I mean, I'm learning. And Mike was like, "I don't know." It's those sorts of little things. It's not on Mike. It's not on me. It's just how we work as a church, right? We say hi to the people we know, and we don't talk to the people we don't really know. Or we send them on their way or get them the supplies that they need or the resources. But those interactions, they take all of us. So if you're like Ed, and you sit in the back and you observe and you keep an eye on everybody, maybe you see someone that you're like, "Wait a minute, I remember Wally and Rita sit there, but who's Jim?" He was a friend of theirs that they brought. Jim had an awesome time last weekend. It was such a pleasure to have him. But it didn't take me knowing that. It took someone else telling me that. Because again, I don't know orchards. I'm still getting to know you guys. And it turns out some of you are MIA during the summer. And then you come back 3 months in and go, "We're back." And I go, "Who the heck are you? Claytons." If you're like Bob and Monroe, Bob Rowe and Marilyn, Brian, son of a gun. See, point taken. But as you like to sit over here, and sometimes we know that Jay has handle on this corner of the church, right? He can golden retriever over the best of us, fawn, make sure we got it okay. But what if somebody's sitting over here and they're quiet? Like Betsy Hemphill's daughter that joined her, Megan. She was crocheting pumpkins. I hadn't met her before. I didn't know who she was. And what I gathered from her is she probably wouldn't like a lot of extroverted energy coming at her on a Sunday morning. So maybe it's Rod's job. Maybe it's Sharon's job to reach out quietly and say, "Hey, how you doing this morning?" Tim's a staff member. He knows it's part of his job to do that. So I don't have to remind him. But all of that comes back to, how are we connecting? How are we working together as a network of care and of love? I mean, we know we're not going to be the ushers for today. Elaine was wrangling people for the sign up. Jim was welcoming people, giving them a sign in. But some people may come in when the doors are closed, or they might sneak in the back. Diane Coates. There are pieces of the puzzle that we need to take care of for one another. So it takes our various skills and our talents as we work together to share that radical hospitality that we've been talking about. The welcoming of the stranger, the welcoming of the person that may make you feel uncomfortable, the cleaning off and making sure people feel safe. That's why we have a safe sanctuary policy for our minors. We need to create a space of hospitality, and y'all are good at that. But now, how do we put that to work? How do we put feet to that plan of action? Which is why I chose the scripture for today from the 3rd letter of John to Gaius, and I'm guessing how that name is pronounced. And the scripture for today comes from a private letter, very short. I went through seminary and didn't know that there was a 3rd John, full disclosure. So it's written as a private a private letter, and its purpose is to make an introduction and a recommendation to the community that Gaius is a part of. John is writing to let Gaius know, his friend. He wants to connect him with some people that are doing great work in his community. And unfortunately, Facebook Messenger and texting was not an option. So how do you send that information? You send a letter. Some of you who are older adults know the power of what those long distance letters can really be. And so John reaches out and says, Gaius, I really trust this guy, Demetrius. He's really amazing. I think he's working towards the greater good, just like those missionaries that I talked about earlier in the letter, which is what Bill spoke for us about. Sharing that sort of information, it creates a bond and a relationship. Just like when you meet someone for the first time, what do you ask them? Okay, what's your name? Who's your family? How are you connected to orchards? Or how are you in Vancouver? What neighborhood do you live in? Wait a minute. You like going boating? I like boating too. Figuring out their interests or their hobbies. Knowing these basic things about someone allows then for a deeper relationship and an interaction to be possible in the future, which is what we need. I'm in the process of creating a visitor form because there will be moments where the usher doesn't snag someone's name at the front, and I'm way too busy running around like a chicken with my head cut off, doing God knows what, most likely finding a 9-volt battery for that darn wireless microphone. And so this is where each and every one of you comes in. At the back of that desk that you signed in on, you can kind of see through the window actually. There's a set of drawers. One of them says name tags and markers. The one on the bottom, another one has our offering envelopes and everything else. And the bottom one, I'm going to put visitor forms. And on it, there will be information where maybe you could have someone say like, well, I don't know you. Tell me more about yourself. And you could fill it out. Or maybe you could say, hey, maybe you don't want to share your personal information with me, but I'm so glad you came to our grill out. Do you want to write down your phone number so we can get a hold of you during the week? Pastor Jessie loves talking to people. It's perfect. It takes a team. We want to make sure that if anybody shows up to our upcoming event, the Trunk or Treat drive-through, and we'll be telling you more about that later in announcements. But if someone comes to that from Orchards Glen, well, I want to get them on our email list, right? That's how we let them know. If we have someone that wants to share a prayer concern and they want it to be shared with the group, we want to get that out to us. We want to make sure that people, if they're coming back to church for the first time in a long time, and people, 2 years is a long time. For young adults, they might not have come to church since they were high schoolers, right? I mean, heck, I was like that. That's how we need to grow. That's how we will grow. But more importantly, it's not about the numbers. It's about how we're taking care of each other, how we're listening to one another, how we're welcoming people and making them feel safe, because we know that this world is not a safe place sometimes, but church can be. And that's where church's radical hospitality is hard. It's the hardest because we've made it through a traumatic experience, either through being socially isolated. Many of us have lost loved ones during the pandemic and we haven't been able to go to their memorial services. We're carrying with us heavy burdens when we come to church. And so when we choose every Sunday to walk through these doors, sometimes we might forget what it's like to be someone who's queer and comes into a church and doesn't know they might be welcomed. We might sometimes forget what it's like to be 18 years old, living on your own for the first time in college, and you are desperately in need of a community, and you go to a college, you come into the church, It takes a great leap of faith for someone like that to come to us. So we got to be ready for them. It's interesting because this letter from John points out the obvious to Gaius and says that they have told the church about your love. These missionaries that John is talking about, they know about your love. The missionaries that John and Gaius have encountered remind each other of who they are in those encounters. And John goes on to recommend and testify to Demetrius's work, how he should be added to the church. But have you all ever met? Would Gaius be able to do a follow-up with that unnamed disciple? That's what we're getting at. It takes some sort of written form of communication. If it doesn't get written down, oh boy, it leaves my brain the next 2 days. I won't remember what was on the grocery list. Thomas can relate to that. That's why he writes it down for me. So that's why I want you to take note. Okay, who's the new person on the block? How do I get their contact information? Heck, I think I got a new phone number, no, a new email for Jim Walker just this week. Brenda shared it with me and I went, well, I don't have that email. Dang. It takes a team to stay in connection with one another. And I'm telling you, if that email wasn't written down, would I have it in our database? No, because I can't copy and paste it. So I know this may sound very obvious, but this is something I want to let you know. Yes, I went to seminary for 3 long years. And yes, I graduated with a master's of divinity. But no, it did not come with mind reading. So when it comes to creating relationships, you got to tell me, you got to write it down, and you got to get it on record, or else I can't do follow-up. I wasn't able to do follow-up with Jim because all of a sudden I realized I had to reach out to Wally and Rita and then get his address and then send the letter. And it was too many steps. And then by then the week went by. A missed opportunity. I'm sharing this with you because I want to let you know it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for us. But together, I think we can do it well. And we can do it with one another. When Bev is having an off day, Bill can step up, right? It takes a team. If you're realizing now that we're coming back in fall and we've been coming to church for a little bit and you realize you haven't seen that friend from church in a little bit, let me know so that I can reach out or give a call. Maybe you have somebody in your life that you know doesn't have a religious community and is in desperate need for an active listener. Somebody whose job it is to sit down, relate, and listen. That's my job. I can do that for you and your friend. If you know somebody that's homebound, someone that's in our church community, or yes, even outside of our church community, that needs help or wants somebody to talk to or needs groceries delivered, let me know. That's part of my job, to connect with people. But it's also part of your job to connect with people, right? It takes a team. So you're amazing. That's what I wanted to really say. You're amazing, Orchards United Methodist Church. And you get to be like John, writing letters of recommendation to me, letting me know who I should be in contact with, keeping me updated about people that maybe you think we haven't connected with, because you're letting me know who I need to connect with in Vancouver. Maybe there's a really cool person at work that you've always wanted to talk to. Well, heck, we could have lunch together. Maybe there's an amazing nonprofit in our Orchards community that I have no idea exists. Let me know. I'm the newbie on the block. I am open to any and all ideas. Because we know that we're stronger together when we're better connected, when we write down those pieces of information and slip it into my mailbox or into my pocket. We're stronger together because we're working towards the truth of the love of God, that there is hope and love in this world, and we get to represent that to others. And to that, I say, amen.